Hello and welcome to the Needs Languages YouTube channel. I'm really glad you're here today. If you haven't yet, please hit the subscribe button. We would love for you to join our YouTube channel. Today, we're going to talk about processing. This YouTube channel is dedicated to personality, communication. We really want you to be successful in your life in communicating and connecting to community. So that's what we've dedicated this YouTube channel about. So today I want to talk about two of my friends and how we process the world. And I'm going to get into the little storytelling a little bit. So I have two friends who both worked on the East Coast. Both of them lived in Oregon at one point, and then they both have lived in the East Coast. That's kind of how I knew them. I met them face to face in Oregon. So it wasn't like I just was online and then, I actually was physically friends with them. And now I have visited parts of the East Coast. In fact, I've gone to DC to talk DC in that state to talk to our state representatives from Oregon. So I live in Oregon. Now, what's interesting is how they both perceived the East Coast, both these two individuals. One thought that the East Coast was great. They loved it, and the other hated it. I'm thinking of In Living Color, hated it. I'm sorry. Sometimes things like that just go through my brain. So I want to share a story I heard from Wayne Dyer, excuse me. I hope I said his last name right. Sometimes I mispronounce things because of my processing. Haha, we're talking about processing today. Someone asked him one time, "What is it like living here?" His response was, "What is it like where you came from?" Now, what was interesting is one person responded to him with, "Oh, it's horrible. People here are so mean and they're so rude." And how Wayne Dyer responded to that person, "Well, it's just like that here." The other person, when had that same conversation, said, "Oh, it's lovely. The people are so kind here. They're wonderful." And Wayne said to them, "It'll be just like that here as well." So our perception comes a lot of times from the way we process the world. You see, part of processing is part of perception. I want to continue with the one person who loved the East Coast. They had moved here from their job there. Now, they had issues with the East Coast as well. Now, they had lived there in the past and had liked it, but then they didn't like it anymore. They didn't like the East Coast anymore. They hated it. All they talked about, so when but they loved the West Coast. They loved Oregon and they wanted to move back to Oregon because they missed it. So they went from, I love the East Coast, but I hate the East Coast. I got fired from my job in the East Coast because I don't agree with something. And I want to come back to the West Coast, Oregon, because I love Oregon, the beauty of Oregon. But now I'm in Oregon and I hate Oregon. So this is this one person. And this is what they said to me. Now, I've lived in Oregon all my life. And they said to me, "I don't like it here. I hate it here. People aren't smart here. They're slow here. I can't believe how dumb people are in Oregon." And I'm sitting in the car going, "Oh my gosh." Now, I've lived in Oregon all my life, and I've seen what's happened with people who've transplanted here. They've sped it up. I've seen how transplants have raised the cost of living. I've seen how transplants have moved here and changed things to their liking without thinking about the people who have lived here their whole lives. Now, I'm going to give you an example, and you're probably going to laugh at me. Uh, we don't pump our gas here in Oregon, and people came here and said, "We don't like to have to wait in line to have our gas pumped." And so they changed it so people have to we pump our own gas, and there was no education on how to pump your gas. And I was like, well, if and I do travel, so I usually get help if I can't figure out how to use the gas pumps. But I was like, what about the people who don't? We need to have something set in place if you're going to change laws like that. So it was very frustrating. So I want you to think about this. Many times when states are slower paced, it's because the people living there are slower paced people. They process the world differently. Now, that doesn't mean that they're stupid people. It means they process differently. Fast isn't always better or more efficient. I share this because it is vital to understand culture and processing and not to make culture align to what we think is right. When we see or feel it is the place, when we see or feel it is the place that doesn't align, we want it to be a certain way. We want it to align with us, is what I'm trying to say. It isn't time to complain or insult. It is time to find something that works or look in the mirror. So, what I'm saying is, when we're not seeing that it's not aligning to what our liking is, we need to either say, let's figure out why it's not aligning, or we need to be looking in the mirror. So, let me clarify for you and give you an example. DC doesn't work for me for many reasons. However, Oregon does. Yet for that other person, no matter what state they moved to, it wouldn't matter. They wouldn't be happy. Like I said, they were happy in DC for a short period of time. They got fired. They realized, oh, I remember I liked Oregon. They came here and then they didn't like Oregon anymore. Now they want to go back to DC because they would be happy in DC. So I want to also say this. If I moved or visit DC, I don't make DC slow down to Oregon speed because I can't keep up or I don't like the speed. I don't make them start their day later because I don't like the hours they keep. Remember, DC is their time zone is way earlier than Oregon's. I don't complain when I go there that they have misconceptions of what a mall is. That's kind of a joke, by the way. I Their malls, their idea of a mall is different than what we consider a mall here in Oregon. I adapt to their culture within reason, or I don't go. What I mean within reason is within the exception of abuse. Like, for example, I will not tolerate being abused in any state or city, and I don't think anyone should. My whole point in this is regions are set up for reasons, and understanding this is being respectful to the culture and the cultural needs and the needs of that culture. So I wanted to talk about this because this is vital in understanding how we process the world. When we expect people to process like us, it isn't fair to them and it isn't fair to us. Because what happens with us is when I expect you to process like me, I'm going to end up in frustration. When I expect myself to process like someone else, I can't hold myself to that standard. And this is one of the reasons why we developed the needs languages was because I saw that in personality, we expect people to process like us and it causes undue stress. But when we learn how people process differently and when we learn how we process, we can then learn how to communicate more effectively and navigate the world in healthier ways and not insult each other, but be more graceful and kind. So I wanted to end on this note. I hope that you subscribe. For more information, you can always go to our website. We have products that you can check out. Our books are quick and easy to read, but they're very insightful and can really help you in skills on how to navigate things like this. So, again, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. And on that note, we'll see you next time. Bye for now.